It's one of the most talked about games of the year. The rivalry that goes all the way back to 1890. This is 5 things you don't know about the Army-Navy football game.
Black 611, we got it moving. We're going back to bus stop. Copy, don't tell me anything on the bridge. Roger.
The Army-Navy game is one of the most enduring rivalries in college football. But before this historic matchup started, Army didn't even have a real football team. What happened was, in 1890, Army cadet Dennis Mitchie wanted West Point to start a football program. So to convince the school to do this, he got several friends who played on Navy's football team to challenge Army to a game. Well, Mitchie got to put his team together, and he served as both captain and coach for it. But because he was the only Army player with any real experience, the Navy midshipmen won a resounding 24-0 victory. Mitchie, however, was not discouraged by the loss. The following year, he stayed on as captain and, with the assistance of another coach, helped lead Army to victory, beating Navy 32-16. Today, for his role in helping start both the Army football program and the rivalry, Mitchie is often referred to as the father of the Army-Navy game, and West Point's Mitchie Stadium is named in his honor.
Ramp 2 directly in front of us, sir. The kids on it, red directly to our front right now.
In November 1952, Dwight D. Eisenhower was elected the 34th President of the United States. A decade before that, he was appointed Supreme Allied Commander in Europe during World War II. And 3 decades before that, he secured himself a spot on Army's football team. In fact, as a running back and linebacker on the 1912 team, Eisenhower holds the distinction of being the only president in history to play in the Army-Navy game. He wasn't, however, the only great general to play. Another celebrated World War II hero, General of the Army Omar Bradley, was actually on the same team with Eisenhower.
Nobody from my track, we're way back over.
This first touchdown is just one of many to come.
The Heisman-Trophy is the most coveted and prestigious award in college football, and Army and Navy hold the distinction of being 2 of only 17 schools in the nation to have multiple players win it. For Army, the recipients are Doc Blanchard in 1945, Glenn Davis in 1946, and Pete Dawkins in 1958. Navy's winners are Joe Bellino in 1960 and Roger Staubach in 1963.
His coach says Staubach has a sixth sense to do the right thing at the right time. He scores on the field, and now he scores with the sports writers.
Black 5, double 6. I'm going to get Demo 6. They're going to fire a 3rd rocket, sir.
1944 and 1945 were probably the high points of the Army-Navy rivalry. In both years, Army was ranked number 1, Navy was ranked number 2 in the nation. But because World War II was going on at the time, President Franklin Roosevelt realized he could use this great rivalry to help support the war effort. And so, he had the 1944 game double as a war bond drive by requiring all attendees purchase bonds along with their tickets. This resulted in more than $58 million being raised. As a side note, when Army beat Navy 23-7 in that year's game, General Douglas MacArthur, who himself had once served as a manager of Army's football team, actually sent Army's head coach a telegram from the Pacific. It read, "The greatest of all Army teams, stop. We have stopped the war to celebrate your magnificent success." On November 22nd, 1963, the world was shocked by the news of the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. And in the days that followed, all sorts of national events, including the Army-Navy game, which was scheduled for November 30th, were suddenly canceled as the nation went into mourning. Well, that might have been the end of that year's contest, were it not for the fact that First Lady Jacqueline Kennedy requested the game be rescheduled. You see, JFK, who was himself a World War II naval hero, was a huge fan of the event. So rather than cancel it, his family realized the game could help the nation heal. So, on December 7, 1963, Army and Navy finally met in front of a crowd of 102,000 people. The box that President Kennedy would have sat in was decorated in black rosettes and flag bunting and left empty as a silent tribute. And after an incredibly intense and emotional contest, Navy walked away with a 21-15 victory. By the way, that game was played in Philadelphia at what was then known as Municipal Stadium. The following year, that stadium was renamed John F. Kennedy Stadium in memory of the president.
At John F. Kennedy Stadium in Philadelphia, the cadets of Army face the midshipmen of Navy.
It's a long-lasting tradition that the President of the United States will spend one half of the game sitting on Army's side and one half of the game sitting on Navy's side.
Today, President Kennedy is a neutralist, and at halftime he switches from the Navy side to the Army side.
Do you know how and when this practice started? If so, post your answer below or reach out to us through Twitter using hashtag 5ThingsYouDon'tKnow.